Hello, miladies of inestimable value. The quieter she became, the more people started whispering about her. There's something unsettling about a woman who doesn't need a crowd to feel complete. While the world runs on constant validation, she walks through it like a ghost who already found hers. Studies show that people with higher self-awareness tend to have smaller social circles, not because they're antisocial, but because they've outgrown the noise that others still mistake for connection. The Sigma female lives in that space. She's not lonely. She's just uninterested in playing emotional dress-up with people who confuse attention for affection. You'll never find her in group chats full of emojis and existential gossip. She's too busy building empires in silence while others argue about loyalty they don't even practice. And when she does appear, people don't know whether to admire her or investigate her. She laughs rarely, but when she does, it's genuine. The kind of laughter that says, "I'm not cold, I'm just allergic to nonsense." This is why the Sigma female has no friends, not because she can't connect, but because she refuses to connect where truth doesn't exist. Her solitude isn't punishment, it's protection. Number 1. They unconsciously demand growth from everyone near them. A Sigma female doesn't preach about growth, she lives it, and that's what unsettles people most. Her presence alone acts like a mirror that shows others exactly where they've stopped evolving. She doesn't say, "You should do better." She just is better, not in a boastful way, but in a way that quietly exposes stagnation. People around her begin to feel uncomfortable, not because she criticizes them, but because her discipline and clarity silently highlight their chaos. She's the kind of woman who upgrades herself without announcing it. One week she's mastering a new skill, the next she's cutting off habits that no longer serve her. Her consistency embarrasses people's excuses. They start feeling the weight of their own laziness just by being near her. It's not intentional. She doesn't want to make anyone feel small, but her self-respect raises an invisible standard that not everyone can meet. Most people crave comfort, not growth. They want emotional warmth, easy approval, and someone who validates their stagnation. A Sigma female can't offer that. She loves in truth, not convenience. When she cares about someone, she challenges them, directly or indirectly, to face their weaknesses. And that's where friendships start to crumble. Growth feels good in theory, but terrifying in practice. Being close to her means constantly facing the parts of yourself you avoid. She's never loud about it, but she has an energy that demands accountability. You can't whine around her for long without realizing how little it changes. You can't stay fake without feeling exposed. She doesn't tolerate smallness, not because she's judgmental, but because she's allergic to self-sabotage. People eventually distance themselves from her, not because she did something wrong, but because she made them see too much. Her standard becomes a silent pressure. She walks away misunderstood, but never bitter, because she knows she didn't lose people. They just couldn't breathe at her level of growth. Number 2. They don't chase relatability, they chase truth. Sigma females don't care about fitting in, they care about what's real. They're not interested in bonding over mutual complaints, fake laughter, or half-truths that make everyone feel comfortable. While most people build connections through me too moments, shared drama, shared enemies, shared insecurities, the Sigma female looks for honesty that doesn't need decoration. If she can't be her full, unfiltered self around someone, she'd rather be alone. Her mind works differently. She doesn't measure closeness by how much time she spends with people, but by how much truth can exist between them. That's why she often seems detached, not because she's cold, but because small talk feels like eating air. She hungers for substance, for raw thoughts, for depth. And since most people are addicted to pretending, she's often left standing at the edge of social circles, observing, not participating. She has zero patience for emotional fakeness. If someone says they're fine, but their energy screams otherwise, she'll sense it immediately. If a person hides behind trends, personas, or masks, she quietly disconnects. She won't call it out or start a debate. She simply stops investing energy in places that can't handle honesty. This confuses people who think connection means constant agreement. To her, connection means clarity, even if it's uncomfortable. What isolates her is not arrogance, but her intolerance for self-deception. Most friendships are built on maintaining illusions, pretending to be okay, pretending to care, pretending to relate. The Sigma female dismantles those illusions just by existing authentically. And that authenticity can feel confrontational in a world that thrives on filters and facades. She doesn't need everyone to understand her. She values truth over popularity, accuracy over approval. While others chase relatability to feel accepted, she chases truth to stay awake. And that's why her circle is small, not empty, but purified. Those who remain are the rare ones who can handle the weight of something real. Number 3, their peace is too quiet for the noisy. A Sigma female carries a calm that doesn't need validation. She doesn't raise her voice, chase attention, or perform to be noticed. Her quiet isn't emptiness. It's a fortress. And that silence is powerful, almost dangerous, because it exposes the chaos in others. People who thrive on noise, drama, and constant emotional stimulation can't handle her presence. Her peace acts like a spotlight, illuminating the unnecessary turmoil around them. It's not intentional, but it forces them to confront the discomfort they usually avoid. Her calmness makes ordinary chatter feel shallow and petty. When she's in a room, the energy subtly shifts. Arguments that would normally feel important suddenly seem absurd. Gossip loses its grip. People start realizing that their usual ways of connecting are loud, distracting, and hollow. Some try to match her serenity, but it's exhausting for those who aren't naturally grounded. Most retreat, frustrated or insecure, leaving her untouched by the noise. She doesn't argue to prove a point, and she doesn't compete for attention. Her presence alone sets a standard, but it's invisible, almost passive. That invisibility makes her impossible to manipulate or impress. People who rely on chaos to feel alive find her tranquility threatening because it's a reminder that they don't need to scream, exaggerate, or demand validation to exist. She exists on her own terms, and her peace isn't negotiable. The quiet she carries isn't loneliness, it's sovereignty. It's a choice to prioritize herself over the constant chatter and instability of the outside world, and that choice inevitably narrows her circle. Only those who can respect silence, self-possession, and emotional maturity can truly exist around her. Everyone else, the noisy, the chaotic, the attention-dependent, drifts away without conflict, unable to sustain the energy it takes to match her calm. Her solitude isn't a flaw, it's a reflection of the rare, undisturbed peace she refuses to compromise. Number 4, they find friendship in patterns, not people. A Sigma female doesn't chase relationships the way most people do. She doesn't collect friends to fill time or seek approval. Instead, she studies behavior, energy, and intention, connecting with patterns rather than personalities. She notices how people think, how they react under pressure, and how consistent they are over time. The actual person matters far less than the structure of their actions, the reliability of their character, and the alignment of their energy with hers. This approach isolates her because most people are unpredictable, inconsistent, or performative. Casual friendships, small talk, and emotional convenience hold no value to her. She isn't interested in bonding over shared hobbies or temporary feelings. She observes carefully, and her connections are built on unspoken understanding, mutual respect, and a kind of synchrony that most people aren't capable of sustaining. When she finds someone whose energy matches her own internal logic, she may invest deeply. When she doesn't, she quietly steps away. There's no drama, no begging, no attempts to force connection where it cannot naturally exist. Her friendships, when they do exist, are rare and meaningful. They function like ecosystems, each element contributing to balance, growth, and stability. She values consistency over charm, substance over popularity, and loyalty over performative affection. If someone's behavior reveals instability, chaos, or lack of self-awareness, she instinctively distances herself, not out of spite, but because her energy is finite and sacred. Most people don't understand this because they measure friendship by presence, chatter, or superficial bonding. She measures it by reliability, truth, and alignment, things invisible until tested over time. That makes her circle appear almost empty, but in reality, it is precisely curated. Every person in it serves a purpose, even if it's simply to mirror honesty and integrity. Her ability to see patterns instead of facades is what makes her extraordinary, but it also makes casual friendships impossible. She doesn't waste time on pretense or shallow interactions. Her solitude isn't loneliness. It's a deliberate strategy to protect her energy and preserve the rare, genuine connections that actually matter. Number 5. They've made peace with being misunderstood. A Sigma female has reached a point where she no longer bends herself to fit other people's expectations. She doesn't explain her choices, justify her boundaries, or soften her truth to make others comfortable. Being misunderstood is simply part of her reality, and she accepts it without resentment. She knows that trying to clarify every misinterpretation is exhausting and ultimately pointless. Her energy is too valuable to waste on convincing people who are unwilling or incapable of understanding her perspective. Most people crave approval and fear judgment, so they spend endless time shaping their image to be liked. She doesn't. She's aware that her depth, clarity, and self-sufficiency make her appear intimidating, aloof, or even cold. Yet she doesn't apologize for it because she knows authenticity is rare, and any attempt to explain herself would dilute her essence. She is fully conscious of her own values, priorities, and limits, and she moves through life according to them, regardless of how others perceive her. Her acceptance of misunderstanding also protects her from unnecessary emotional entanglements. People often misread her silence as indifference, her boundaries as rejection, or her self-possession as arrogance. Instead of trying to constantly correct these perceptions, she focuses on cultivating her own growth and maintaining her inner peace. Her misalignment with societal expectations is intentional. She refuses to compromise her truth for the sake of social comfort. This doesn't make her bitter or unapproachable. It makes her selective. Those who remain in her life are not there because they misunderstand her less, but because they respect the space she occupies and the integrity with which she navigates it. She doesn't need constant validation, and she doesn't rely on others to define her worth. Being misunderstood has become a shield rather than a burden. She has learned that the right people will understand naturally, and the wrong ones will drift away without her interference. Her solitude is not a flaw, but a consequence of her alignment with reality over perception. In embracing misunderstanding, she has achieved a freedom that most people never even recognize they're missing. Number 6. They don't trade wounds for connection. A Sigma female doesn't believe that pain should be a passport to intimacy. While most people bond through shared struggles, complaints, or emotional confessions, she doesn't see vulnerability as a social transaction. She doesn't use her scars to earn empathy, and she doesn't expect others to spill their pain just to prove they're real. That refusal confuses people who've learned that emotional drama equals closeness. When she doesn't engage in that exchange, they assume she's distant, cold, or detached. But the truth is, she's simply not addicted to suffering as a bonding tool. She's emotionally intelligent enough to know the difference between genuine vulnerability and emotional exhibitionism. Most people don't share to heal. They share to be validated. They turn wounds into stories and stories into attention. The Sigma female sees through that instantly. She listens, but she doesn't participate in emotional theatrics. Her calm response to other people's chaos often makes them uncomfortable because she won't feed the fire. She refuses to make pain a shared language. For her, connection should be built on growth, not grief. She values mutual understanding, shared vision, and spiritual maturity, not pity parties disguised as friendship. When she opens up, it's intentional and meaningful, never for sympathy or social currency. And because she doesn't bond through emotional bleeding, many people mistake her restraint for a lack of depth. But in reality, she feels deeply. She just expresses it with control and self-respect. This is why her relationships are rare but solid. She filters out anyone who romanticizes pain or thrives on emotional dependency. She doesn't need someone to cry with. She needs someone who can heal with her. Her emotional independence is misunderstood in a world that equates oversharing with honesty. But she knows that strength doesn't need to perform, and real connection doesn't need wounds to survive. Number 7. Their presence exposes illusions. People need to survive. A Sigma female walks through life with an honesty that unsettles people. She doesn't perform, pretend, or edit herself to fit into social molds. Her energy is unfiltered, and that kind of authenticity acts like a mirror. Without saying a word, she reflects people's insecurities, pretenses, and hidden motives back at them. It's not something she tries to do. It just happens naturally. Her very presence strips away the small lies others tell themselves to feel comfortable. And when that happens, people often pull away, not because she's done anything wrong, but because she makes it harder for them to stay asleep. Most people survive on illusions. Illusions of control, popularity, emotional strength, or moral superiority. These illusions keep them functioning, even if they're built on denial. But when they're around a Sigma female, those protective layers start to crack. She doesn't feed delusion. She won't fake admiration, laugh at shallow behavior, or participate in the emotional theatrics that help people hide from their truth. Her grounded energy forces authenticity into the room, and most can't handle that level of exposure. She makes people feel seen, not in a flattering way, but in a piercing way. The kind of seeing that reaches under the surface and touches the part they've been avoiding. It's not rejection that drives them away. It's self-defense. They retreat to preserve their illusions, because being around her feels like standing under an unfiltered light. She doesn't judge, but her honesty doesn't allow people to keep pretending either. Her life functions as a quiet truth serum. No noise, no confrontation, just presence, and that's what isolates her. While others rely on masks to belong, she wears none, and that nakedness scares those who do. She's not lonely. She's just living at a level of truth most people aren't ready to face. Number 8. They can't fake softness to earn belonging. A Sigma female doesn't dilute her truth just to be liked. She's capable of deep compassion, but she refuses to use emotional sweetness as a mask. Her love is honest, not decorative. In a world where people equate gentleness with compliance, her straightforwardness can feel intimidating. She doesn't lace her words with flattery or wrap her opinions in comfort. She says what she means, directly and clearly, and that kind of clarity unsettles people who need emotional padding to feel safe. Most friendships survive on mutual ego protection, telling each other what feels good, not what's true. The Sigma female doesn't play that game. If she sees self-deception, manipulation, or weakness disguised as virtue, she'll call it out. Calmly, without cruelty, but with surgical precision. That honesty exposes fragility. People who are used to being handled softly often label her as harsh or emotionally distant, when in reality, she's the only one brave enough to be genuine. Her inability to fake softness isn't coldness, it's integrity. She believes that love without truth is manipulation. Pretending to be gentle just to maintain peace feels like emotional betrayal to her. She doesn't confuse kindness with compliance or compassion with weakness. When she cares, she shows it through honesty, presence, and loyalty, not through sugar-coated lies or performative warmth. But this standard leaves her isolated. Many people can't handle truth without comfort attached. They crave validation, not reflection. They want someone who agrees, not someone who challenges. The Sigma female won't play that role. She'd rather be alone than emotionally diluted. Her truth has weight, not because it's cruel, but because it's pure. And in a world that thrives on softness as social currency, her refusal to fake it makes her appear unapproachable. Yet those who truly know her understand. Her sharpness isn't to wound, but to keep every connection clean, real, and awake. Number 9. They see manipulation before it finishes breathing. A Sigma female has an almost surgical awareness of human behavior. She doesn't just listen to what people say, she reads tone, timing, energy, and intent. It's not paranoia, it's perception. She can sense manipulation before it even completes its sentence. A forced compliment, a strategic favor, a guilt-laced request. She detects the motive behind it all instantly. Most people see manipulation after damage is done. She sees it forming, and once she spots it, she's already halfway out the door. She doesn't confront manipulators or argue with them. She doesn't expose them publicly either. That would mean engaging in the same emotional game she refuses to play. Instead, she withdraws quietly, with the kind of distance that can't be repaired. There's no explanation, no scene, no closure, just silence. And that silence carries more weight than any argument could. The manipulator feels her absence like a mirror closing. They can't access her anymore because she's already decided they're unsafe. Her intuition is razor-sharp, trained by observation and experience. She notices the micro-behaviors others overlook, the delayed tone after a compliment, the exaggerated empathy, the emotional bait hidden inside kindness. She knows when someone's offering help to feel superior, or when affection comes with hidden expectations. Her mind connects dots most people don't even see. That's why she's hard to fool and nearly impossible to manipulate. But this awareness comes with a cost. She becomes hyper-selective about who she lets in because once you've seen manipulation everywhere, trust doesn't come easily. People misread her caution as arrogance or detachment, but it's actually emotional wisdom. She knows that peace is fragile, and manipulation, no matter how small, poisons it. Her silence after detecting deceit isn't weakness, it's a form of strength. By refusing to engage, she denies manipulators the power they crave, attention and reaction. Her distance is her declaration. Once a Sigma female senses your intent is impure, you're no longer part of her world. She doesn't fight you. She erases you. Number 10. They communicate in energy, not excess. A Sigma female doesn't rely on endless words to express herself. Her energy speaks louder than any speech ever could. She believes communication isn't about volume, it's about vibration. You can sense her intentions without her needing to explain them, and that quiet precision unsettles people who depend on noise to feel noticed. She doesn't perform in conversations or fill silence just to make others comfortable. Her presence alone carries weight, and that's often more than most can handle. In a world addicted to over-explaining, oversharing, and overreacting, her stillness feels foreign. People used to constant stimulation mistake her calm for distance. But she isn't being cold. She's being accurate. She speaks when there's meaning behind her words, not out of social obligation. And when she does speak, every word lands with intention. Those who crave chaos or attention quickly feel starved around her because her energy doesn't feed their noise. She doesn't entertain exaggeration, gossip, or theatrics. She simply doesn't give them oxygen to survive. Her silence is often misunderstood. People expect constant reassurance, validation, or performance. She offers none. Her quietness isn't an absence. It's presence in its purest form. She observes deeply, feels fully, and responds only when necessary. That kind of restraint requires emotional maturity, and it makes shallow people uncomfortable. They interpret her minimalism as disinterest when it's actually depth. She communicates through eye contact, tone, and energy, the things most overlook while trying too hard to be heard. Her calm aura tells the truth without needing to argue it. Her restraint says more than 100 apologies ever could. Those who can sense her energy understand her completely, without many words. But those who depend on noise, drama, and constant affirmation feel lost around her. That's why she often stands alone. Not because she can't connect, but because she refuses to speak the language of emptiness. Her communication isn't for everyone. It's for the few who can read silence, feel intention, and understand truth without excess. Number 11. They're allergic to emotional dependency. Sigma females are not cold. They're simply uninterested in carrying relationships that can't stand on their own legs. In a world where most friendships are emotional barter systems, you fix me and I'll fix you. They stand out as the rare ones who don't seek repair through others. They understand that emotional dependency often disguises itself as closeness, but it's really just control wearing the costume of care. They don't crave that kind of bond because it drains freedom, and for them, freedom is sacred. They know that if someone can't function without constant reassurance, that person doesn't want connection. They want supervision. And a Sigma female didn't come to mother adults. She came to coexist, not to constantly patch emotional leaks. The moment she senses that her peace is being rented out to keep someone else emotionally stable, she detaches. Not because she's heartless, but because she values balance. She believes that real connection happens between two whole people, not between two broken halves clinging for survival. This detachment often gets her labeled as cold, distant, or unavailable, but those labels usually come from people who depend on emotional chaos to feel close. She won't absorb another person's pain to prove loyalty. She listens, she cares, but she doesn't carry. There's a quiet strength in her ability to empathize without enmeshing, to love without losing herself in the process. That balance unnerves people who only understand love through dependency. She's not afraid of intimacy. She just knows that emotional neediness kills respect faster than dishonesty. To her, space isn't rejection. It's respect for individuality. And while others chase validation through constant contact, she thrives in emotional independence. That's why few people can stay in her orbit. Her energy demands self-sufficiency. She won't hold you together, but she'll inspire you to hold yourself. And that's far more powerful than any emotional crutch disguised as friendship. Number 12. They see manipulation. Before it finishes. Breathing. A Sigma female has a sixth sense for deception. She doesn't just listen to words, she reads tone, body language, timing, and the emotional undertones most people ignore. Her intuition operates like radar, scanning every interaction for hidden motives. She catches manipulation before it fully forms, before it even finds its next breath. Whether it's a disguised favor, a compliment with a hook, or a guilt trip dressed as care, she feels the intent before the act. And once she recognizes the pattern, she doesn't argue, she doesn't warn, she withdraws. Her withdrawal is silent but absolute. There are no confrontations or emotional outbursts because she understands that manipulators feed on reaction. The more energy you give them, the more control they gain. She refuses to participate in that exchange. Instead, she chooses stillness, a kind of cold, clear distance that closes every open door. That silence is what unsettles people the most, because they can't twist or spin her calm into guilt. She simply detaches, and the absence of her energy becomes its own consequence. She's learned that not all manipulation is loud. Sometimes it comes dressed as love, loyalty, or concern. Sometimes it's found in favors that create debt or in emotional traps that guilt her into compliance. But her perception is too sharp to fall for it. She doesn't get pulled in by emotional bait because she sees the string attached before others even notice the lure. Her awareness doesn't make her cynical. It makes her sovereign. She trusts herself enough to know when energy feels wrong. That's why she's often labeled as distant or guarded. She simply doesn't gamble her peace on people who play emotional games. Her silence is not weakness, it's precision. Once she sees manipulation, the relationship ends in her mind long before she physically walks away. And when she finally does, there's no return, because trust, once broken in her world, doesn't heal. It disappears. In the end, the Sigma female isn't friendless because she's broken. She's friendless because she refuses to bend. The world demands masks, and she prefers mirrors. She doesn't play by emotional politics, doesn't perform warmth to earn acceptance, and doesn't engage in surface-level loyalty that evaporates when truth enters the room. She walks her own path, and that solitude isn't punishment, it's protection. Her peace is her currency, and she spends it wisely. Most people can't stand that level of self-sufficiency because it exposes their own dependence on validation and noise. She's the kind of woman who'd rather have silence than shallow chatter, authenticity over attention, and isolation over imitation. While others seek belonging by shrinking themselves, she finds belonging within herself. Her friendships are few, but they're sacred, rooted in truth, not transaction. She doesn't chase connection, she attracts alignment. And that's something most people never master because it requires emotional discipline and self-awareness the world rarely rewards. Being a Sigma female is both a blessing and a burden. The blessing is peace, no drama, no performance, no chaos. The burden is loneliness, because very few people know how to stand beside someone who doesn't need saving. But she accepts that trade-off with quiet grace. Her solitude isn't a void. It's a sanctuary where she recharges, rebuilds, and reclaims her strength. So when people call her cold, they're just confessing that her boundaries make them uncomfortable. When they say she's hard to know, it's because she won't hand out access as easily as attention seekers hand out affection. The truth is simple. She doesn't have no friends because she's difficult. She has no friends because she's rare. If this message resonated with you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with someone who needs to understand that solitude isn't weakness, it's mastery. And remember, real power doesn't seek crowds. It stands alone, calm, grounded, and unshakably free.